Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pro Wrestling Inside and Out. And we will be talking about Mid-South Wrestling. And we're going to be talking about all the things that happen in Mid-South Wrestling. Rodney West, welcome. And also, we want to welcome superstar Bill Dundee to the show on the phone.
Can you hear Bill? How are you? You hear him, Brent?
Yeah, he's not coming in real good, but I think people will be able to hear him. We had some technical difficulties.
That's an understatement. We've tried it every which way in the world tonight, but we're on. All right, that's all we can say. Bill's on the phone. Yes, he is. See, he's on the phone. I might have to hold it up. Well, let's hold it up this way and do it that way. Obviously, I need to clean my phone. But anyway, we're here to celebrate Mid-South Wrestling 1984. Bill Dundee was the creative brains behind everything. As he got everything together, we're going to be concentrating on May of 1984. Bill, you got a chance to see some of those shows, didn't you?
I'd like to just say, I had a little.
We can't hear what he's saying.
Well, what Bill was saying is he was paying a tremendous compliment to our father, Ron West. Did you? Can you pick him up now? At all?
No.
All right. We're sorry about this, ladies and gentlemen. We've worked on it for the last hour. We've done the best we can. But he was just talking about what a great team, and for 2 years that his right hand man was our father, and that was a great compliment. Dad was so happy to be a part of that team, and it was a team. It was a tremendous team effort. I mean, you had Joel Watts just getting started on in the commentary. In fact, the first show in May would have been his first time as commentator, and it looked like it was his first time in commentary too. But he warmed up and he became very good. I mean, it was just him getting used to getting into the rhythm and stuff. He knew the holds, and of course he had been around the wrestling business all of his life. In fact, you will notice when they talk about Dad, Ron West, it's either if they've been around for a long time, like Joel Watts and Bill Watts, always called him Ronnie. But Jim Ross called him Ron. It was odd. I thought that was kind of funny. But we start you called him Ronnie too. Well, I mean, you've known him forever until he got to Georgia, and then he was Ronnie. I mean, they changed it to Ron. I think that was Gordon's doing, because Gordon just does that kind of thing, if you know what I'm saying. whatever he wants to call you, it's okay with him. I can tell you right now. That's right. Well, the beginning of May brought us to yet again the Superdome, Super Date at the Superdome. Bill, do you have any recollection of what kind of response was happening? How many letters, how many entries did you have on that?
When he saw that, because it was all sent to Tulsa.
Right.
So Bill Watts didn't bring it down, and if you had the accolades, you didn't know what was happening, what you were really happening.
That would have been something to see all the cards and letters, the pictures and whatever. They said they had an independent firm taking care of that. I bet you the independent firm was the next door office or something. I don't know. But anyway. We begin, of course, the Superdome is coming up. It's very special when World's Fair was going to be in New Orleans in June of that year, so an extra Superdome, and they were having the big contest for people to win a date with the Rock and Roll Express, Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson. You had to send in a picture. Picture was very important. Send in a picture, and you have to be single. That was very important as well. All of those stipulations and all of that. Picture was most important. They kept saying, "Now make sure it's a recent picture. Now, don't be sending us any old stuff."
I think there was an age limit too.
Yeah, it was 18. Yeah, it was 18. So Joel put together a new video at the beginning of the show, and Joel wanted to get as quick to the video as he possibly can because, like I said, it was his first day, and like I said, it was his first day. It's kind of like our first day here. It wasn't stellar either. But anyway, he had a great video put together of the Rock and Roll Express with Van Halen, and this was all Mid-South footage. It wasn't any from anywhere else. And then we find out that Stagger Lee has now left after he was painted by Butch Reed and Buddy Landell on a prior show. And so the Junkyard Dog would be returning back to the Mid-South on this particular program. And then we got to hear from Jimmy Hart and Troy Graham and the accusation that the Midnight Express had broke his leg and that they were coming back. Troy Graham, he said, just as soon as I can, I'm going to come back. Jimmy Hart said that you hurt my bruised brother, number one, and that when they least expected that Jimmy Hart and the Bruised Brothers were going to have revenge on Cornette and the Midnight Express. You know, Bill, I really, truly think that would have been fantastic.
Just the one match.
I'll just say the program. I mean, think about it. Jimmy Hart against Cornette. I mean, in that interview, he alluded that he was coming. Troy Graham said, I'm going to come back. Me and Pork Chop are coming back. We're going to get our revenge. And it's too bad that never happened because I believe it would have been stellar. I really do.
Let me think what never happened.
Well, I know that Troy Graham got he got hurt. I think he was in I'm thinking a motorcycle accident, and it broke his. Yeah, it was beyond repair. In fact, later on, I think that Troy Graham was managed, and I think he was managing the interns in back for Jarrett. Terrible tragedy. He was a tremendous talent. Was absolutely fantastic. By the way, I want to say hello before we get too far into this. I've neglected my job here. I want to say hello to Barry. I want to say hello to Rita Cantrell, always watching. Great to see you, Rita. David Lawson, and say hi, guys. Hello, how are you? Welcome back. Mark Schwartz, he's talking to the superstar. That's talking to you, Bill Dundee. And then we got another one, another Rodney West. And he said, hey, guys, used to watch your dad in Columbus on Wednesday night. Great man for wrestling. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's too bad. Like I said, I really think that would have been a great match, great program between the Bruised Brothers and the Midnight. And the interviews that would come out of that would have been just unbelievable. Unbelievable. If you talk about talking people into the seats, I believe they could have done that. No doubt about it. Then we have an opening match, Pat Rose, Buddy Landell versus Rock and Roll Express. People are hot for the Rock and Roll Express, no doubt. Mid-South Tag Team Champions. And Pat Rose from right here in Chattanooga. What a great talent. What a great talent. And him and
you got credit for it.
I think so. I really do. And you know, when he was in Southeastern, he was actually a Mr. Wrestling #1 or a Mr. Wrestling 2. He teamed with Randy Rose. Great team, and he was really great on this match. Pretty much almost worked the whole match by himself, but he was barely in the ring for that one. Not sure what was going on. Then we move on with Terry Taylor against Pat Rose. Taylor in a neck brace, and of course that's good because he had his neck broke, you know, had an injury, and that would be good to keep, you know, following up on that. Then we're going to see the Junkyard Dog, and he does a fantastic interview yet again. He's talking about now he's number 3 in the nation, and he's been making trips to the Orange Bowl in Texas. And let's just be honest, not only was Mid-South hot in 1984, but World Class was setting the records too. Freebirds and the Von Erichs, Jimmy Garvin and Chris Adams. It was a good time to be in wrestling, and it was a great time to be a fan for sure. We had Junkyard Dog talking about having to go to the Mid-Atlantic area and deal with Ernie Ladd, which I think is a prelude, which was going to happen eventually when Ernie Ladd finally returns. And then Jim Cornette comes out there and has all kinds of trouble and has a lot to say to the Junkyard Dog and wondering why in the world they haven't had their return match with the Rock and Roll Express. And then he was berating the Junkyard Dog for being Stagger Lee and making a joke about him for getting painted as Stagger Lee. Finally, Junkyard Dog had enough, snatched Cornette by the throat, and that's when the Midnight Express hit him. And Bobby, with a tennis racket, And if you ever known it, hey, Bill, what's it like to be hit by a tennis racket by Bobby Eaton? Yeah, he he aims for the bleachers. There's no doubt about that. From the cheap seats, that's where he aims. Knocking the Junkyard Dog out. Here comes Butch Reed again. And then we had to paint him yellow one more time. Junkyard Dog all over the floor. And the wrestlers, Condrey slipping all in the paint and everything else, trying to get out of there as the cavalry comes to run them off. Then we have at the desk, we have wrestling, the original wrestling too. Now he's Mr. Wrestling, still the North American heavyweight champion, and talking about his man, Mr. Wrestling too, his protege. And in that one, he's talking about the Rock and Roll Express and how it was that they become, how they got their robes and the mask, and basically pulled some shenanigans on the Midnight Express to become the Mid-South Tag Team Champions. And the original Mr. Wrestling 2 or Mr. Wrestling at the time, he was a little bit irate, for no doubt, and demanding a match with the Rock and Roll Express for the Mid-South Tag Team Championship. Why are they dodging him? And I'm sure in the arenas you were having that match. How was that? How was those matches? You know, I love. I thought that Wrestling 1 and 2. I thought that was a pretty decent idea. They were a decent team, but you never saw them as a team. And that was very interesting. On television, they were never a team. It was always Mr. Wrestling 2, the protege, and Wrestling 1 or original Wrestling 2 out on the floor like managing. I always thought that was interesting because I'm assuming that the whole time you're building Wrestling 2, the new Wrestling 2, which was Hercules Hernandez. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And ladies and gentlemen, as we were talking, I think like Monday night, we were talking about psychology. And in these next few shows, you're going to see how Bill's psychology works. And it all will come together in the big match for the $50,000 versus the Mid-South Tag Team Championship, Rock and Roll versus Midnight. And we'll cover that in the next few shows. Coming up then, we have Ito against Magnum TA. And this time, Ito has a new weapon as he puts the claw on Magnum TA. And I mean, it was pretty intense. TA bleeding in the match. Ron West right there as a referee. In the end, Magnum TA able to overcome and hit Ito with the belly-to-back suplex. Absolutely fantastic. Just a fantastic match between Ito and Magnum TA. Then we come up on show 244, and we have some other people have joined in. Let's say hello to them. Charles Alford, always good to see you. Thank you for coming. Bubba Smith, Pensacola, in the house. Great town, Pensacola. Joe Ballou, Piedmont, Alabama, is in the house. David Lawson, he says, Pat Rose waxed a very good and underrated wrestler, or was a very good and underrated wrestler. Always had a good match. And then there's Lovely Laura. Remember Lovely Laura, Bill? Hey, Lovely Laura. Good to see you. It's been a long time. Lovely Laura Huckabee Martin. Very good. Very good. Good to see you. Thank you for coming in on us. All right, now we come up to episode 244. This is originally aired. Think about this, ladies and gentlemen. 36 years ago, Bill. 36 years ago when these shows originally aired. Fantastic. Yeah. I mean, it was, like I said, 36 years ago. And like I said, if you watch these matches, ladies and gentlemen, they really hold up. They really do. And think about it. It's only 2 cameras. But in those 2 camera shoot, you're getting more action than with 7 any day of the week. I can tell you that much right now. So we open up the show. Kerry Von Erich is now the new, at that time, on that particular weekend, was the new NWA World Heavyweight Champion, beating Ric Flair at the Cotton Bowl. Tremendous response. At that time, the Von Erichs, World Class and Mid-South worked very closely together. You'll see a lot of their stars, and they go back and forth. Junkyard Dog, like I said, was over at the Orange Bowl. So it was tremendous, or the Cotton Bowl. I think he said Orange Bowl, but I believe he meant Cotton Bowl. So tremendous. Then we get to see a brand new wrestler coming on the hand, big time. And I'm sure Charles remember him. Jay Youngblood from Mid-Atlantic was coming down. They saw We saw a video from Mid-Atlantic with Jay Youngblood as he was heading there. Of course, May was a time for a lot of new people, a lot of people returning or new people coming. Jay Youngblood, one of them, and we'll see some of the others as we get through the show. Then we have a match with Steve Dr. Death Williams as he's making his way to the ring. And of course, we in the previous show, I forgot to mention, had a big match at the Myriad Center, Myriad Center in Oklahoma City. 14,000 people in the arena in the Myriad Center in Oklahoma City. Yes, I know you'd remember him, Charles. Jay Youngblood, Steve Moak, great team, great wrestlers, no doubt about it. But like I said, Steve Dr. Death Williams comes in facing the big Steve Brinson, and of course, he stampeded his way to victory in that match. Then we have Butch Reed, and he's re-showing the paint job that gave the Junkyard Dog from the neck last week. If it wasn't Russians opening up their haircut in the shave place, it's Reed opening up his painting shop because he's painting everybody, and the Russians are cutting everybody's hair and beards and whatever else. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Yeah, you have Reed in the match. He's against Al Scott. Ends up with the Gorilla Slam and the shoulder tag. Then we have an interview with Jim Cornette. And this is the big setup for the big match. $50,000 versus the Mid-South Tag Team Championship. Rock and roll. This is going to be on television. It's not going to be no disqualification on television, which is highly unusual for a Mid-South show. But it's going to be no disqualification on this one. And Cornette lays it out, $50,000 versus the Mid-South Tag Team Championship. Ladies and gentlemen, we get to discuss this. And I will show you how the notes for that one goes. It nearly a page full of notes just on one match. Fantastic, and you'll see it. If you haven't seen this match, I would highly recommend it because, like I said, it shows psychology, and it really puts it all together. And it's a great illustration, made by the master, Bill Dundee. After that, we have a big match with the Midnight Express comes out there against Mike Jackson and Lanny Poffo. Another great match, and as you said before, Mike Jackson, Bill, if Mike Jackson was 6 foot, he would have been a superstar. Absolutely. And not to say he didn't do great. I mean, he was fantastic, but let's just say he was nonstop. I mean, the flying moves. And I'm going to tell you, I don't recall seeing a Mike Jackson in a bad match. I really don't. If there's one, I didn't see it. He was always brought 100% every time he was in the ring.
And his partner could work. Lanny Poffo could work.
Oh yeah. I mean, Lanny was awesome. He really was. Yeah. And then when you put them together with Bobby and Dennis, it was just go. Just tore those guys. Let's talk about just real quick. We're going to talk about each individual here, and we'll talk about Dennis later. But talk about Bobby Eaton. When you were going to put this whole thing together, where was Bobby on your list of people when you were going there to work for Watts?
First met Bobby when he got in the wrestling business. He was George Gullis's buddy, and he would haul George around and look after George. Nick put him with George. You know who George was. So Bobby was a kind of his bodyguard in real life. And of course that put him on good shows, and he got, made a few dollars. But he was a hell of a worker back then. He was just a young kid, but taking supper. So when I got the idea or got the offer, come to Louisiana, we needed a tag team. And what better than Dennis Condrey, Bobby Eaton, and Jim Cornette, right? Right.
There's no better, actually. No better that you could have picked. And Bobby, I'm telling you, there's nothing, absolutely nothing he could not do. I'm just here to tell you. And everything looked great. Everything looked great. I mean, just.
It wasn't, what would you say? None of us was really book smart as far as reading and writing and arithmetic, but the wrestling business, he understood it.
Yeah, no doubt. And think about how long they stayed on top, and that's anywhere. I mean, even when Jarrett, before you brought him there, Jarrett used him very well. I mean, he was a tag champion. He was a Mid-America champion. I remember a fantastic match that he had with you was one of those expiration of time matches, you and Bobby, and that match was awesome. It was just awesome.
guys, if you're going to work on top, you have to be able to work.
Well, no doubt, he is definitely one of the best. I have to say. So no doubt about that. Then we come up with match 7, Mid-South Television Championship. It was Crusher Khrushchev against Terry Taylor, and the people were just really behind Taylor in that one. In the end, it was Taylor about to finish off Crusher Khrushchev when Butch Reed and Volkov hit the ring, and then out to make and out for the Cavalry was Steve Dr. Death Williams. And this time, Steve Williams had different plans for Mr. Khrushchev as he took the Mid-South Television title medal and decided that if you want the medal, Khrushchev, you'll have to go through him to get it. And so he stole the medal from Crusher Khrushchev. And that will play into what will happen in the weeks to come with Steve Dr. Death Williams. And as you see, every single week, he gets better and better and better. He really does. He really does. Then we have an interview with Wrestling 1 and 2, and again, they're talking about the Rock and Roll stealing their masks. They're talking about that. They make a threat to Mid-South. Either you take care of this situation or we will. You get to the bottom of this, of how they came in possession of our equipment. And they wanted to know, and if they didn't find out soon enough, they were going to take the law into their own hands, and we'll see what they meant by that a little bit later on. We have Mr. Wrestling 2. The new Wrestling 2 is Hercules Hernandez against Bob Owens. Of course, Wrestling 2 over in that one. Then we have, again, we're talking about the Super Date at the Superdome. And like I said, tremendous match. And then the big match for next week coming up, or the big challenge had already been laid down between the Rock and Roll Express, Midnight Express, the 50,000. And the contract signing for that was going to be on the next show, which is show 245. In that, we start off with Jim Ross, and in the ring is Grizzly Smith, the matchmaker. Talk about Grizzly Smith for a second, Bill.
Well, Grizzly's been around Bill Watts in the Mid-South, long before we got there. And he was popular as a wrestler in his day, but I go along with him as far as, what can I say? He may not have been the greatest booker in the world, but he understood the wrestling business, and he was a big old boy, and he understood what it was to be a big guy and a little guy in the wrestling business. So his psychology was very good.
Well, he
got along good with him, and he was good to the boys. So what more would you say?
And if I'm not mistaken, he was the direct line to Bill Watts, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Yes, sir.
He basically represented Bill in every show, as from my recollection. And he was part of one of the great tag teams, the Kentuckians. We're talking about a man that was 6'8", 350 pounds. And he was a star everywhere. I'm talking about in Georgia. I'm talking about he went against Gorilla Monsoon in California, Canada. We really need to get maybe Sam Houston on one night. We'll talk about the career of Grizzly Smith. It's quite extraordinary, and he even went against Freddie Blassie. So that tells you that they don't put anybody against Freddie Blassie, for no doubt.
Right.
So we end up with the big match, and of course Grizzly's up there, big signing for the big match, $50,000 versus the Mid-South Tag Team Championship. And all along, and I have to admit, it was brilliant. Every time Bobby and Dennis would come around the table there, the people would start hollering as if they're going to attack the Rock and Roll. That was brilliant. I love that. Every time they would move, the people would say, watch it. It was so good. Never happened. I thought that was great. Absolutely great. To give them the thing, because it's like, I know what's going to happen. No, you don't. No, you don't. And they were trying to call it before it happened. It never happened. That was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
It's the thing I tried to do most of the time I was in the wrestling business, was keep the people guessing.
Right. Because there's going to come another thing that I talked about last time, and it's going to be where Bill Dundee is one step ahead of everybody, and you'll see that. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. As we come up, we're talking about the Super Date at the Superdome, and like I said, they're pushing that. They're pushing that up sometimes twice during the show, And I would have loved to have seen what the entries looked like, how many people entered into that date. Then we have the first appearance of the Thriller, Mark Reagan. Tell us what you think about your impressions of Mark Reagan there, Bill.
What show are we on?
We're on 245, and it's the first appearance of Mark Reagan. He's the one that does the Michael Jackson dancing. And first time I saw him, I was like, what in the world's he doing? But go ahead.
You don't remember that? Ain't that awful?
Oh, well, I mean, he danced towards the opponent. He was against Jerry Gray, and he would break dance towards him. He would put him off balance. And I'm thinking, what in the world is he doing? Why is he kicking him? I mean, I didn't quite get it. But when you look at the crowd, you understand why he was doing it, because the crowd loved it. And that's the main thing. It's all about the crowd and what they like, not what you're saying. What in the world is this? No, it's about what they like. And they liked him. They liked Mark Reagan. And he would come out to Thriller, and then he would get in the ring, and they would change the music to Billie Jean, and he would do all these dance moves towards the guy and against his opponent, and force them out of the ring pretty much while he does this. And then he does the break dance and then goes right into the match. And really, he was really good. He really was great. Wrestler, it's Mark Reagan. If you ever get a chance, take a look. In the end, it was Reagan winning with a second crossbody in that match. Then we have go ahead.
He wrestled.
He went against Jerry Gray, and Jerry Gray was good too. Yeah, he was really good too.
You on TV 245?
245. Yeah, we're at 245 in the first match. Jerry Gray versus Mark Reagan is where I'm at. We're catching up. I moved a little ahead there, I think. I might have jumped. I don't know. You never know. Yeah, and like I said, it was very different. And like I said, at first I'm like, what in the world is this guy doing? And then I understood. And the people liked it, and that's all that matters. That's all I have to tell you. If they like it, you keep doing it. Sure. Absolutely.
But that was before we got there. There were just big monsters beating one another up.
Yeah, that was it was certainly a different. Like we said before, you certainly expanded your demographic, no doubt. Let's get some comments here. Charles Alfred said that we mentioned Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood, and he said he loved them as a tag team. They were a great tag team. Then we had Dana Pruitt. She said, "Hey y'all," she's from Mohatchie, Alabama. And then Terry, good evening, Rodney, and good evening to Terry. Welcome, and we're glad everybody's here tonight. And then we're continuing. We got next match would be Buddy Landell and Masayo Ito. I'm finally getting that name right. It's taken me 4 weeks to get there, but we finally got it right. And they're facing the Rock and Roll Express. Once again, tremendous crowd response. I mean, this crowd is just electric. Ends up in the match with the double drop kick as Ito takes it. They call for the break. And then Joel, I think it was Joel. Yeah, Boyd Pierce and Joel called for the break, commercial. And right as they were going to break, here comes Wrestling 2 and Wrestling 1. And they got in the ring and to challenge the Rock and Roll Express. And Rock and Roll Express said, well, if you want to have a match, you'll just have to get with Grizzly Smith and you'll let them sign it. But we're finished. We're going home. Good night. Well, when they turned around and left, Wrestling 1 and 2 had their jackets and they tore them up. And that's what you get. They told you earlier in the show that they was going to do something about it, and they did. And so we're getting ready. Rock and Roll, not happy about that as they come in and got that. Again, great stuff. Absolutely great stuff. I would have loved to seen those matches. Those were Dad was there, but we didn't get to see those matches. We were back in Tennessee waiting for school to be out so that we could get down there as soon as we could. But absolutely tremendous stuff. Then we have the Wrestling 2, the new Wrestling 2, I guess you'd call him, Hercules Hernandez against Magnum TA. Crowd really behind Magnum TA. I mean, they were really with behind TA. And it shows you, if you have patience and you make the right decisions, things go your way. And that's what's going on with TA. Absolutely. In the end, it was TA catching the Wrestling 2 with the belly to belly. Wrestling 1's in. They double up. Wrestling 2 with the knee lift. And then the Rock and Roll comes out for the save on that one. Then we end up with next match, Nikolai Volkov against Steve Dr. Death Williams. And again, Volkov with the national anthem. I love that. I mean, the people at this point are basically just about coming up to riot. When he starts singing the national anthem, the American flags start waving. It's exactly what you want it to be if you're doing something absolutely fantastic. In that match, though, Steve Williams wins with the Oklahoma Stampede over Nikolai Volkov. Very unusual, I think. But again, Steve Williams with the Stampede winning in that match. Then we have the Shadow against Terry Taylor. And me and Bill was, before we went on, we were talking about the Shadow, and Bill doesn't remember who the Shadow is. But whoever he was tremendous. And if any of you out there knew who the Shadow was at that time, and I'm been unable to find it, they said it was Randy Colley, but this guy wrestler was not big enough to be Randy Colley. But he was tremendous, did some just fantastic holds. Wasn't very big, but I mean, he could really, really wrestle, and that was a tremendous and big build up with him and that one. Of course, it was Taylor winning that match with the flying forearm. Then we had Crusher Khrushchev versus Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and anytime Duggan's involved, the people are just there. I mean, like I said, if you want to talk, it's almost a tie between who gets the bigger response between Rock and Roll Express and Jim Duggan. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't seen it, you really need to. Like I said, these shows are 36 years old, but these still stand up even today. Even today. In that match, though, as I said, the Russians have opened up their hair and shave department, and they come in and they try to this time shave the head of Jim Duggan. They had the shaving cream and they had him all lathered up, about to give him the old, about to give him the bald cut, until the Rock and Roll and others come out and Dr. Death, and they make a retreat in that one. But Jim Duggan's got his hair all lathered up with the shaving cream. It was something. That was great. That was great. I kind of wondered, though, like I said, with Reed and his painting company, and you have the Russians open up their barbershop. It was oh my goodness. Then we're coming up to show. We're about to get to the big match. We're big match, and like I said, I just hold on, Bill. I'm gonna put you down just for a second. My notes for the Rock and Roll Express and the Midnight Express match. That is the entire match, one whole page. That is, and because the details in the match are unbelievable, and this shows what it is. Like we're talking about psychology, and they add it all up from weeks, and we'll go through that in due course. But as I said, we're coming up on this is show Bill. We're up at 245, 246 now. This was originally aired on May the 24th of 1984, and we start off the match with Boyd Pierce and Bill Watts, and they're talking about the match, the $50,000 worth of Mid-South Tag Team Championship. Absolutely, just brilliant, absolutely brilliant match. And like I said, we'll go over that in just a second. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we once again talk about the Super Day, and then the announcement comes. We have a brand new North American heavyweight champion, and it is Magnum TA. He won the title on Mother's Day. That was on May the 13th, Sunday, May 13th, 1984, in the Tulsa State Fairgrounds electric match. Just tremendous, absolutely tremendous. After all of the clawing and the belts and whatever Wrestling 2 or now Mr. Wrestling has put him through, it all comes down to this. And Magnum TA finally wins the North American Heavyweight Championship for Mr. Wrestling, and the crowd's absolutely electric. The roller coaster ride, Bill, in that match was unbelievable. I mean, it looked like every time it looked like Wrestling 1 had him. I mean, then you had Wrestling 2 involved in. Again, it looked like TA was beaten. He was over. And then in the end, the very thing that brought Wrestling 2, the North American Heavyweight Championship, ended up costing him. I'm talking about the plates that he would wrap around his knee, ended up costing him. Yeah. Go ahead.
I wonder whose idea that was.
Now, I don't know. Whose idea was that?
I had to talk to him and to do it.
Wow. Wow. Well, I tell you, it was.
Why would I need that 20 years after I started the knee lift? I said, mainly because I'm fucking telling you, you need it. And then he went, oh, okay.
Okay. Well, all right. Since you put it that way, I guess it's.
That was it. There was no argument. I wanted it. And I had the stripes.
Yeah, I understand. Well, you know, and you know what? In the end, it paid off. I mean, really did, because
and he realized it. And he came to me and kind of in his way apologized.
Sure. If he tries, you just as well take it as a full apology, because that's about as good as it's going to get with him.
That's about as good as it's going to get.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. You know, we love him. I mean, we love Johnny Walker. He was just.
Yeah, I like Johnny Walker
too. We rode up and down the road many a time with him. He stayed with us. We just think the world of him. But in the end, like I said, that little gadget put on the knee, he tries to hit Magnum TA from behind, ends up hitting Wrestling 2. TA comes around, hits him with the belly to belly, and that was it. All right, well, it hits him with the schoolboard back, and it was the Magnum TA winning the North American Heavyweight Championship. And what a long, hard struggle it was to become the North American champion. And I think that's what made him a champion that people loved there. I mean, they, even after, we'll talk about this later, even after other people won the belt, they still say that's TA's belt. And that means something. I mean, that really means something. Then we come up with Sonny King. Sonny, in my opinion, had the best interview of his life. Him and Bill Watts, and they're talking about Butch Reed. And this is the incident that took place with the Junkyard Dog in Memphis. Junkyard Dog was on Memphis television, and as we've always said, don't go to the set if you're at Memphis, because you're going to get beat up. But anyway, so Junkyard Dog was there, and Buddy Landell, who was not scheduled to be on TV in Memphis, showed up, and he and Butch Reed tarred and feathered the Junkyard Dog on Memphis TV, and that's where it was showed. They showed it on Mid-South, and as normal, Lance Russell, just a brilliant job. Absolutely brilliant job. My favorite part of that is when Junkyard Dog says about Buddy Landell, he said, he's just a Tennessee boy. And Lance says, well, we don't claim him. We don't claim him. He said, and Junkyard Dog said, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I'm going to take care of it. No, we're sorry about this, dog. We're sorry. No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I'm going to take care of this. How was the Junkyard Dogs received in Memphis?
Over like Rover.
Was he?
Yeah, when he talked to the black people.
Ah, right.
You know what I mean? He talked to the brothers and sisters, and the town was brothers and sisters.
Well, I'll tell you, he really, as you see, and if you watch the Junkyard Dog and you study him, you understand why he was where he was at. No doubt about it. I mean, no better than the Junkyard Dog. And it was his subtle way of doing things, I think. Those little things. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, Lance. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
And did that interview and go over with the people. Look where the people had watched for the last 10 years. Jerry Lawler, Bill Dundee, Ricky, Robert, we're all itty-bitty fellas compared to Junkyard Dog, and we're white.
Right.
You know what I mean? So JYD was a brother, and a big brother, and he got over. You know what I mean? And the brothers came out and supported him.
And he backed up what he was saying. He could too. And if you don't believe it, go ask Lex Luger. He backed you up. No doubt.
Oh yeah.
No doubt about that. Well, like I said, Sonny King, they were talking about the incident, and Sonny King was talking. He was out there with Bill Watts talking about that. And here comes Butch Reed. Reed was in Sonny King's face, and this time Bill Watts had to stand between them, and it was odd. It was different. This time Watts, big, of course, as big as both of them, standing between them, keeping them from going to blows. I thought that was great, and you don't see that all the time. I'll just tell you, and I think that made it great. Absolutely great. So now we come to the $50,000 match versus the Mid-South Tag Team Championship. And like I said, right at the beginning of that match, the fans presented the Rock and Roll Express with brand new jackets, the ones that were tore up from Wrestling 1 and 2. And in this particular match, this time, and as I've said before, if you receive anything from a fan, trophy, it could be roses, normally by the end of the second segment, it's destroyed. Somebody has to tear it up. And Bill, knowing that, he didn't do what we thought he was going to do. No. You never know what's coming next. And now, ladies and gentlemen, comes the psychology. We have all the instances of what the Midnight Express have done in the last few weeks. And now those all come together. And the number one thing that was done before the match even started was, and of course, again, it was no disqualification, was Carl Fergie coming up to Jim Cornette and taking away the tennis racket. And I'm going to tell you, when you that changed the whole dimension of the match. Tennis rackets out of the way. Now, what is he going to do now? How's he going to get away? And they stacked the deck any way they could against the Midnight Express. I mean, everything and anything that had happened before. Even through this match, if you remember back, we talked about the great match between Butch Reed and Buddy Landell against the Rock and Roll, where Cornette pulled the rope down and Robert come out and hit the ground, hit the floor, and he didn't get back up. Same exact thing happened in this match. This time, Robert Gibson he gets back up. Again, you think it's going to happen. Oh, this happened before. Everything is answered. Everything is answered through the weeks. Absolutely fantastic. And now, after all the weeks, remember, it's no disqualification. So they were able to throw people over the top rope. Of course, back then, throwing wrestlers over the top rope was a disqualification. In Mid-South, coming off the top rope was a disqualification. So all of that was done in that match. And everything that was done that was where they were throwing over the top rope, the people really responded because it was not an everyday occurrence anymore. It was just unusual. Because throw somebody over the top rope, then there's a disqualification. You come off the top rope, and I believe the rule was if somebody laid prone on the mat, if they come down with a knee or a point, it's a disqualification there. And so they did, and absolutely they did. The match continues, and tremendous, absolutely tremendous match. After Robert Gibson Cornette pulls the rope down. Robert Gibson takes the somersault back onto the floor. Bobby Eaton comes out. And they were fighting. Robbie Eaton was going to ram Ricky Morton's or Robert Gibson's head into the post. Reversal, and Bobby went into the post, busted him open. Absolutely. Like I said, absolutely tremendous. Then inside the ring, it was Dennis Condrey. Finally, as Robert Gibson was coming in the ring, Ricky Morton had the spinning toe hold on Dennis Condrey. As Robert came in the ring, Dennis kicked off Robert. They hit each other. The Rock and Roll hit each other, knocked each other down. Then to the top rope goes Dennis Condrey. Condrey comes off onto Robert Gibson. And as he tried to come off on Robert Gibson, Ricky Morton saved him from the knee. And now Ricky's down. As a result, then Bobby comes back in, or Dennis comes back in, I believe. And let's see, I've lost my place there. Yeah, Bobby comes back in, goes for a move, leapfrogs, Robert catches Dennis with the sleeper, or Bobby with the sleeper hold, and he drop kicks the referee. Referee was Ron West, and he takes this hellacious right through the second rope onto the floor. It was fantastic. About that time, as the referee is down, Cornette pulls out a towel and starts spraying it. And when he starts spraying it, you can notice the people around him in the audience there along ringside. They started holding their nose because the Cornette. Go ahead.
They did smell that.
Yeah, starting spraying ether on a towel. You could smell it. They said they could smell it all over the arena. Cornette gets in the ring, puts it over on Robert Gibson's face, and then the rest is history, as they say. Midnight Express win the Mid-South Tag Team Championship, and as they left, the people and even Bill Watts said, "I can smell that all the way over here." I can smell that over here. Like I said, every single step. This match had been built for weeks, absolutely built for weeks, and just a tremendous match for television. That is on episode, I think it was 246. If you get a chance to see it, ladies and gentlemen, worth the watch. I'm going to tell you, worth your time. Great match, and worth, like I said, worth the time. No doubt about it. Midnight Express, once again, Mid-South Tag Team Champions. As we move on, it was, like I said, it was just a tremendous match. Like I said, taking away the tennis racket. They had the no disqualification, so all these things that they were doing previously was illegal, and as they done them, like I said, throwing over the top rope, people responded to it. Like I said, just a tremendous match. After the match, Jim Cornette out there, Jim Ross with the Midnight Express, the new tag team champions, in an interview, and Jim Ross said, "What in the world was that you sprayed on that towel?" And he said, "Well, after Bobby was injured like that, he said he needed some kind of antiseptic to keep the wound from infecting. And all I was doing is planting it." He never admitted to it. Nowadays, now, Bill, I don't like to denigrate or talk about, okay, I do, about wrestling of today, but they'd come out there and admit to it. We admit that we did that. No, you never admit to it. You lie. No, it never happened. What are you talking about? We would never do such a thing. What's wrong with you? Absolutely fantastic. And you can just see, and like I said, ladies and gentlemen, you can see why 1984 was a big year. Big matches happening all over. Absolutely. Big matches. Then we have Buddy Landell versus the Thriller, Mark Reagan. Oh, what a match that was. In the end, it was Butch Reed coming in on that one. And then Sonny King makes his way. And it looks like to Landell and Reed was about to do in Sonny King. But Sonny King and Mark Reagan make short work of Landell and Butch Reed. And I'm going to tell you, Reed, I think, was probably in one of the best shape of his life. I mean, he was just awesome. Interviews.
He was big and no fat.
Yeah, he was just awesome. Just awesome. And for a big man, he could move. I'll just tell you right now, that's one of the most impressive drop kicks you can do at 270. I'll just tell you right now. I mean, he was super, absolutely super. During all of this, during all of this show, Bill Watts, I think, breaks his headset. Now, I don't know if he slammed it down, but somebody needed to get him some duct tape so he could tape that back on his head. I mean, he kept, I broke my headset. That's what he said. He broke his headset. Then we come up after that, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, in that match 2, and I left it out, Buddy Landell is disqualified for throwing somebody over the top rope, and I think that was important to do to remind people that throwing over the top rope is a disqualification in Mid-South. And I think that was once again to establish what the rules are, because you can't play a game if you don't know the rules, and the rules are important. That's the reason, since like today, they don't have any rules, so you can't have a no disqualification match, because they have that anyway. You can't have, chain matches, etc. They're having them anyway. So there you go. So anyway, like I said, after all that excitement, Watts has broke his headsets, needs some duct tape. Somebody needs to get him some. All right, then at the end, we talk about the next match coming up, and Jim Ross is going to have an interview with Wrestling 2, the new Wrestling 2. And he's going to be getting a chance at the North American Heavyweight Championship with Magnum TA. And Jim Ross asked the new Wrestling 2, the last time his Mr. Wrestling's protege got a championship match, it didn't end too well for that protege. Do you think the same thing might happen to you? And of course, he said, "Well, no, I'm younger, I'm smarter, I can do better. Don't worry about it. There's no problems. There's absolutely no problems. We'll find out differently when we get to that." Like I said, we got to then at the end of the show, they start announcing about a match and a situation happening between Chris Adams and Stella May and gorgeous Jimmy Garvin and Precious from Dallas. And if you haven't got a chance to see all of that, that is really, really good stuff. Like I said, it's all about the same time, 1984, Freebirds, Von Erichs, and I think building up to a big match at the Superdome as Stella May and Chris Adams, Jimmy Garvin, and Precious, one of the big matches at the Superdome on the June 16th card. The open up match, this is 5 weeks, ladies and gentlemen, so it's going to be a little long tonight. So we'll be able to talk about the Superdome the next time around, but we've got the big matches coming up. We're coming up the last show at 247. It's episode 247. And I'm going to tell you, the first start, they start talking about the situation with Stella May and gorgeous Jimmy Garvin. And the first time Stella May makes her appearance, I think it was in Fort Worth, she cleans house. I mean, she cleans house. She throws Precious around, and I think she throw a punch better than man sometime. I'll tell you right now, that woman was awesome. I don't know her. I don't remember from where she came from, but wherever she was, she was Stella May.
May West?
No, I don't know. It could have been. I don't. It was Stella May. Her name was Stella May French on that part, but I'm not sure where she come from. But like I said, she was awesome. And then she did that great interview where they had to bleep, had one of them bleeping interviews where they had to bleep a lot of her words out. And Chris Adams said, "No, you can't say that." And she said, "I'll slap you too." That's great. It was great. And then we have another interview with Jim Cornette, and Jim Ross just plain out calls Cornette a liar to his face. And I mean, he said, "Well, you're saying that they." Yeah, it's just so Cornette once again lied. He said, "Well, you've lied about this." And hold it. Let me say something to you. Let's get some facts here, Jim. This is Cornette. Let's get some facts here. It was a no disqualification match, right? What's the problem? Number 2, the Midnight Express and the Mid-South Tag Team Champions, right? Then I rest my case. And then he walks off. Fantastic. Well, he don't walk off. He does his double bicep. Or, well, I didn't see no muscles in that. That's all right. That's all right. Keep trying there, Jim. Then we have a match, Del Vici and Steve Brinson against the Rock and Roll Express. And, of course, they win that one, the double drop kick. They make the announcement and I guess still building up for the Superdome. They have the Women's World Tag Team Champions on the way for the Superdome Wrestling Extravaganza. Then a big match with Ito and Sonny King. This was a great match. Do you remember the match, Bill?
Yeah.
It was tremendous, absolutely tremendous. And I love the fact that Ito was going to use one of these thrust karate chops. That's in 3D if you have glasses. Anyway, he's going to do one of these 3D, one of these karate thrusts to the throat. And I loved, of course, now it was my father. He was a referee. He was a referee during that match. Got right in his face, and he warned him about that. It was very powerful. I haven't seen that done in a while. I'm sure that y'all may be called for that, but it was quite powerful. I mean, he stopped, looked him right straight in the face, and said, "There will be no karate." It was very impressive. And again, I think important to reestablish the rule and to establish the rules. Very important.
Yeah. And here's the other thing. The people in Louisiana had never really seen that kind of stuff before.
Right. And it's important that when things become routine, to get everybody out of the routine, to keep them guessing about a lot of things. Right. So now we come up, and in the end, of course, it's Sonny King winning with a double headbutt, and he's over Ito in that particular match. Sonny King, let's talk about Sonny King for a second. Tremendous. Like I said, I think in the prior show, probably did one of the best interviews he's ever done. But people in Louisiana and the Mid-South love Sonny King. And I've seen Sonny King in other places. And he never really got, or as far as we're concerned, normally he was managing where we were at, but never really got the response that he did in Mid-South. Could be because he was right there in McCall, Louisiana. But like I said, he got tremendous response. People really love Sonny, and again, a very different style than what they were used to, different than the Junkyard Dog or Reed or whoever. He had a very different style. And like I said, and it seemed like when he was doing his interviews, it came so sincere. like he was just talking to you, like you were talking to somebody on the street, just a regular everyday guy. And it came over that way. And the people, like I said, the people of Mid-South really loved Sonny King. So now we come to the North American Heavyweight Championship match, Wrestling 2 versus Magnum TA. And just as Jim Ross alluded to, Mr. Wrestling was not happy about it at all. And so he tries to take the match over. Him and Wrestling 1 and Wrestling 2 get into it. They have a big scuffle. Wrestling 2 finally knocked out of the ring. My dad, the referee Ron West, had to come out and help Wrestling 2 out. Nobody else would, of course. But I noticed that when the Wrestling 2 and Wrestling 1 got into it, the people were firmly behind the protege. And it just showed you just how powerful Wrestling 2 was. I mean, Mr. Wrestling was. And like I said last time, truly the way that he treated Magnum TA and the pretty much the backstab of the people really did worse than just say, you made me mad. It was now personal, not just between Magnum TA, but with the fans, between the fans and Wrestling 2. I mean, it was personal with them now. It's not that it's like, you broke our heart and we'll never forgive you what you did. And it was going to be difficult. And like I said, you would expect people to maybe decide with Wrestling 1, the original Mr. Wrestling 2, but not in this case. Like I said, that was pretty vicious what he did to them. Absolutely tremendous match. Hernandez and TA. I mean, they really had a tremendous match. In the end, it was Magnum TA with a big win. Wrestling 1 and 2 getting into it again at the end of the match. Tremendous match. And of course, leading up to the big show coming up on June 16th, 1984 at the Superdome Wrestling Extravaganza. In the next match, we had Butch Reed and Buddy Landell against Mark Reagan and Mike Jackson. Reed win with the shoulder tackle. And then at the end of it, the show was Crusher Khrushchev against Lanny Poffo. And of course, it was Khrushchev with the backbreaker. And then talking about Steve Dr. Duff Williams still with the Mid-South Television title medal. And that will end tonight as we get ready at the end of May, and we're getting ready to go into June. Let's see. Charles had some words. He said, as I sit here and listen to you and Bill, I'm learning. That's why we hope so. And like I said, these matches, Charles, are available. You can watch them right on YouTube and check them out if you haven't seen them. Just absolutely fantastic. I know you are a big Mid-Atlantic fan, as we all are. I mean, just because we're not talking about Mid-Atlantic here does not mean we don't know what's going on there. We'll get to Mid-Atlantic soon enough, but right now we're focusing on the great business that was taking place in 1984 and the man Bill Dundee, and hopefully we'll be able to get him back on screen. We were having, like I said, terrible technical difficulties, wasn't we, Bill?
Yes, we was. Technical difficulties.
Technical difficulties. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap it up here. It's been a little long. We went a full hour tonight. A lot of stuff here. Ladies and gentlemen, if as excited as we describe it, just imagine what it was if you were there and you saw it. And then, like I said, you can still relive it on various places. I think WWE Network also has all those shows. So enjoy. Like I said, look it up, see it. It is fantastic, worth remembering, and we're happy to be a part of it. And like I said, Bill, I want to say thank you for that great compliment you paid our father. He was so proud to be there.
Yes, he was. Well, he did a lot of help for me, I'm telling you.
Well, I know that I don't recall him and you two ever arguing about anything. I mean,
No, never.
It was pretty much like you shared the same brain. It was quite. It was quite.
We were both nuts.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna.
That's the thing. This is what I think the difference was with. But I don't know. People think Ronnie and I were on the same page of how the wrestling business worked. You know what I mean? He had his way of doing things. I had my way. But at the end of the night, we knew what we wanted.
Exactly.
You know, and it was basically the same.
And it was fun.
Right. That's the main thing. Make it fun. We ain't doing it.
That's right. Make it fun. It was fun. It was a challenge. And to see the results, and you did. You saw the results night after night after night. Such hard work of you, Dad, and Bill Watts, and the whole crew. Just extraordinary. And I was happy. We were very happy to be a part of it. So
Me too.
I'll just tell you right now. Well, we're going to do it again. We're going to do it again next week. We're going to. All right, we're going to do it again next week, ladies and gentlemen. As always, we thank you for joining in. Make sure to subscribe and do the notifications and share and all that good stuff. And we will be back here again. We're going to go into June. We're going to talk about the Superdome, the next Superdome Wrestling Extravaganza. We're going to see how that date, the super date at the Superdome, how that ended up. And we'll talk about that whole show and Jimmy Garvin and Precious and Junkyard Dog and Reed and Rock and Roll Midnight, the whole gang. And of course, it was, as always, we thank you for joining us. And for Bill Dundee, I'm Rodney West, and we'll see you on the next Pro Wrestling Inside and Out. Good night, everybody.